Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Pearson Center in Conversation. We do this from time to time, of course, and we're so glad you could join us because today we have a very special topic. For me, it certainly hits home, to say the least. So, we're going to talk today about energy, emissions, and economy, Atlantic Canada's unique road, and we have some very special guests with us today. And I'll get to Shannon in just a few moments, but we're doing this in partnership with the Energy for a Secure Future. We have Chair Shannon Joseph with us, who's going to do the moderating. In the meantime, we have some extremely special guests. I'm sure many of you already know, and of course, very familiar with. I'll start with Minister Hutchings, who's in the middle of a snowstorm, by the way. So if she all of a sudden disappears and reappears, it's because of the conditions in the snowy Western Newfoundland, which is, yeah, not a sight that we're unaccustomed to, would it be, Minister?
You're right, Scott.
So born and raised in Corner Brook, the Honourable Goody Hutchings, proud to call Newfoundland and Labrador home, even on a day as stormy as this one. More than 30 years of experience as a small business owner, the Atlantic Canada tourism industry. She was first elected Member of Parliament for the beautiful Long Range Mountains in 2015. From 2021 to 2023, Minister Hutchings served as Minister of Rural Economic Development. In this role, she was focused on accelerating high-speed internet access for all Canadians. In 2023, Minister Hutchings was given the additional responsibility of the minister responsible for the Atlantic Canada Opportunities Agency, or as we like to call it, ACOA. Above all of that, she spends some wonderful time with her granddaughter and her two dogs, Jigger and Marta. Minister Hutchings, glad to have you.
Pleasure to be here, Scott. Hello, everybody.
Danny Breen. Well, okay, I'm going to start with being controversial because we're not supposed to be controversial, you see, here at the Pearson Center, but I'm going to do it. Dare I say this, Mayor Breen? Dare I say it? I will get flack, probably not from you, from others, when I say Mayor Danny Breen is the honorable mayor of the oldest city in North America. Dare I say it?
Definitely.
I
Yeah.
just did. Danny Breen was first elected to the St. John City Council in the fall of 2009, was re-elected by acclamation, a politician's dream. Imagine, elected by acclamation. He was first elected mayor of the city of St. John's 2017, acclaimed as mayor for a second term in 2021. Currently, he is lead on governance and strategic priorities, economic development, a member of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Big Mayors City Caucus, Big City Mayors Caucus, I'll get that right, and member of World Energy Cities Partnership. He's involved in his community, serving the board of directors of the Heart and Stroke Foundation of Canada. Mayor Breen, it is an honor. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Scott. Good to see you here.
You too, my friend. Now, this is one of those things where if I talk about Chief Misael Joe, I could do his bio in approximately 2.5 hours. So I really have to shorten this down. So that said, at the age of 16, Chief Misael Joe was given the alternative. I love this story, by the way. This is why I'm in your bio now. I want to read it. The age of 16, Misael Joe was given the alternative to either leave the reserve to journey to other parts of Canada in search of employment or to travel to a neighboring community and attend secondary school. Misael chose to leave the reserve, and during his time away from the community held several positions such as farmhand, factory worker, railroad worker, construction worker, truck driver, heavy equipment operator, ranch hand, commercial fisherman, underground miner, and labor foreman. That's one hell of a LinkedIn page if you're going to put that up. Misael Joe returned to Miawpigik, or also known as Conn River, in 1973, and since that time has been serving for the public. In 1988, the community of Miawpigik decided to create a two-chief system, and he now has served 14 consecutive two-year term as administrative chief. That is his former bio. As of yesterday, Chief Misael Joe is now officially retired, but never forgotten. In May 2004, Misael was awarded Honorary Doctor of Laws. In 2012, the Queen's Jubilee Medal was awarded to Chief Misael. And on January 24, 2018, in a ceremony in Ottawa, Chief Misael Joe was awarded the Order of Canada. That, folks, if you want to read about this gentleman, is just a thin slice of what this man has accomplished. First of all, not only welcome, but congratulations, Chief Joe, on an absolutely wonderful career in public service,
Thank you very much, Scott. Much appreciated.
as always. Shannon Joseph, I'm going to let you talk about yourself and your organization. You do some great things. And of course, this was your idea, and I thought it was a great idea. I'm biased, of course, but I just want to hand it over to you. And good luck. And I'll come back. And I just want to remind everybody who's watching this, there is a question box in the side. And if you want to suggest a question, uh, we may not be able to handle all questions given time constraints, but we'll do our best. Ms. Joseph.
All right. Thank you so much, Scott, and thank you to the Pearson Center for this great opportunity to have this conversation. Energy for a Secure Future is an initiative that's about a year old, but it was really focused on trying to have conversations in Canada about energy that weren't happening. Kind of the genesis time of this was, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the energy crisis that created in Europe, Asia, and elsewhere. It also opened up this new kind of conversation around how do all of our goals around energy, not just emission reductions, but also affordability, reliability, competitiveness, social mobility, all tied together. And how do we talk about this and carve our way forward that gets us the future we want for everyone? Since we've started, we've recruited some incredible leaders into our network of advisors and organizations. I'm very happy to say that Mayor Breen and Chief Joe are both part of our advisory council. And it was really, I think, important for us to try and shed a spotlight on Atlantic Canada. We often hear about Canadian energy and think of the West, but Atlantic Canada has such a critical energy story and has played an important role in Canada serving energy to the world. So I'm very excited to be here. And I'm grateful that Minister Hutchins was able to join this conversation as well, because I think when we have the Indigenous government perspective, local government perspective, national government perspectives, we can bring those perspectives together for resilient solutions. So I thank all the panelists as well and Pearson Center for the opportunity. Now, to kick things off, I want to start with Minister Hutchins, but I'll of course ask everyone, can you talk about what's unique about the rural economy in Canada, and in particular, what's unique about Atlantic Canada's economy?
Shannon, look, before we start, I just want to acknowledge that I'm speaking today from a beautiful land that's a traditional Mi'kmaq territory, and I acknowledge with respect the diverse heritage and cultures, the Beothuk, the Mi'kmaq, and the Inuit of our province. And I do have to take a minute to congratulate my dear friend, Chief Joe. Um, Also, to add to Scott's lines, people don't realize what a revered spiritual leader Chief Joe is. He's an authority on traditional medicines. And if you haven't read one of his numerous books, please reach out and pick up one of his books. They're good for your heart, they're good for your soul. Chief, you've been a solid rock for all of us on Turtle Island. I'm such an honor to call you a friend, and I can't wait for a pasta costa again. So this is the first time I've seen you since the big news. So congratulations, and I know the next chapter of your life is going to be incredible. So Shannon, you asked me to talk about rural Canada. Well, we probably don't have enough time because rural Canada is so magical, especially, pardon me, rural Atlantic Canada. We forget sometimes that 30% of our GDP comes from rural Canada, right? It's not only what we're talking about today, the green energy, but it's also our fishing, our agriculture, our forestry, our tourism. Much of that is anchored in rural parts of Canada. And here in Atlantic Canada, the wind is in our sails. In October of just last year, October 2023, the Public Policy Forum highlights Atlantic Canada as has a bold vision for the taking, and it points to the solid momentum, all this is in quotes, that we have in moving forward with offshore wind energy. The report goes on to say that massive development of wind energy and critical minerals off of Atlantic Canada's coast will play a major role in fulfilling the national decarbonization objectives, and it's going to lay the foundation for durable economic development. We see these as a huge opportunity. It's like I say, our population and economy are hitting highs that we haven't seen in 60 years. Halifax and Moncton are fastest growing. I just flew home from St. John's, and Mayor Breen, you're doing a great job because St. John's is growing too. So population growth and the transition to clean energy, it's going to create significant investment opportunities. And our region is going to be a leader. As I said, the wind is in our sails in Atlantic Canada.
All right. Well, that sounds incredible, and I couldn't agree more. And I want to bring in Mayor Breen first, like to maybe speak to the minister's comments. How do you see this question from a mayor's perspective?
Well, from our perspective, as St. John's is a little is unique. We are heavily reliant on resource-based industries, and in St. John's, we rely on our we call it exporting expertise. We're a place where companies develop new products. We're a very creative group of people in Newfoundland and Labrador, and that creativity goes beyond the arts and all other areas. It also goes into our problem solving and our experience in the ocean industries, and taking what the offshore oil industry, which has brought such great benefit to our province, and being able to develop new industries from that and new technologies that can be used in other areas that we see coming forward is a big part of our economy. In the future, we have a community climate change plan we call Resilient St. John's. That community plan is more than about adaptation and the issues around climate change. It's also a clean economic development plan for our city. And it identifies industries that we can expand and ways that we can make maximum effect on the new economy and the new green economy. So we're very excited about the opportunities that lie ahead, and it's our job to be prepared to take maximum advantage of those.
All right. Chief Joe, I would love for you to weigh in here, and I do echo everyone else's congratulations to you. Now you're just starting your retirement. Just for additional context, I moderated a panel here in Prince George, BC, with First Nations leaders who are getting involved in the resource sector. So it would be great, and I think the BC story is quite known. Can you speak to, for the Miapukek and for your nation and maybe other Indigenous communities in the region, how do you see the economic story, and what do you see as the challenges and opportunities?
Well, because we live in a small Aboriginal community, I may hear a lot of background noise. I don't know if anybody else is hearing it or not. And I'm having a hard time hearing what's being said on the screen.
We can hear you clearly, Chief Joe.
Okay. Now, the problem is I'm hearing the background noise, and
Maybe we can ask other folks to mute your mics, the other panelists to mute your mics when you're not speaking.
okay, it's gone. No, coming from a small Aboriginal community, it's always difficult to get involved in outside businesses. But we took a turn in terms of looking to the outside world some time ago. And first off, it was when the Marshall Treaty came about. And because we weren't commercial fishermen, we've only fished for food, getting into the commercial side of fishing was difficult for us. But eventually we made our way. We managed to get some funding to get into offshore fishing. And then eventually we moved into the mayor's fine city of St. John's and developed some businesses here too as well, a partnership mostly. And we're looking closely at what's happening right now with many things that's on the go. And as same things that Mayor talked about is, the offshore oil will play a role in our own sort of review somewhere along the way. It's not quite there yet. And of course, the wind energy that's being developed at this stage, not only because I think it's friendly for the environment. We'll find all those things out for sure in the coming future. But everything that was mentioned by the minister, the fisheries and the forestry, the gold that's popping up all over the place. It's a gold rush. All those things is part of what we want to buy into. and partnering with where we can. And that's happening almost on a daily basis, finding new partners. So despite being a tiny small reserve on the south coast of Newfoundland, with the help of a lot of people, including the minister and other people, I think we'll survive the next 100 years quite well. But before I drop that, I want to tell you a little small story. Scott is still online. It's, Scott was one of our best communicators in terms of things that we want to do. And he would always call me periodically, tell me what's coming down the tubes. And it was always nice to have him in the community. One evening, me and Scott was talking back and forth, and my wife was away in New Brunswick visiting our great grandchildren. And I just finished speaking to Scott by text, and I sent a message to, I thought it was my wife, and said, "When are you coming home? I miss you." And very quickly, I got a message back from Scott, "I miss you too." So anyway, that's pretty much where I am with that one. That's where everything that's on the go in the province in terms of economic development, we are trying to get into all of those in any way we can. And most of the time it's going to be through developing partnerships with bigger companies. We've done some of that, and we're involved in wind projects too as well. And my pride and joy, of course, we're part owners of a decommissioned icebreaker that's doing incredible work in the Arctic, is doing work with students on ice, is doing survey work. And I like all the things what we're doing right now because it brings back to our community much needed home source revenue.
All right. Well, thank you. And, you know, I think both you and Mayor Breen, and I apologize in advance if my camera's kind of cutting in and out. Both of you and Mayor Breen, Chief Joe, mentioned the offshore oil and gas industry and its importance to the region and to Newfoundland. And maybe I'd ask you to kind of both speak to this, and then I'll turn it back to the minister. But can you speak to, you know, what has been the importance of that industry for the region, for your city, for your nation? Chief Joe, I know your nation was looking at Newfoundland and Labrador LNG. Can you talk about that sector's importance? Mayor Breen.
Yeah, so I don't think we can underestimate or overestimate the impact that the offshore oil industry has had on our province. With the collapse of the cod fishery, and you know, there was 30,000 people that were put out of work, and the oil industry allowed us to make significant investments in our infrastructure. It certainly gave us government revenues that were needed to continue the services that are so important to the people of our province. But the other thing it did is it gave us an opportunity for economic diversification. It gave us the opportunity to develop new technologies, to put money into research and development. It contributed to the start of what is becoming and is a very successful startup sector and tech sector here in this province. So all those things came because of the investments from the offshore. So sometimes it goes beyond the revenues from it, and it goes to what it did in terms of transforming us into where we can be in the new economy and into the future. So you know, it has been invaluable, and you know, oil's going to be around for quite some time yet, and there's still a lot of benefits to be taken from for the province to come from oil, and also our ability to be able to transform ourselves into where we need to be is probably going to be one of the greatest legacies of the offshore oil industry in the province.
And I think this is an important starting point and story, which is that you can start with one set of resources, and it lays the foundation for other growth and diversification. Chief Joe, how would you weigh into that in terms of the offshore and your nation's perspective on that?
Well, again, the offshore oil is we weren't involved in the beginning during the Pickford years, but slowly now starting to look at how we can do a process of training our people through university training, technical training. All that's become so important to us, not just training doctors and lawyers and nurses, but technical people too as well. So whether it's going to be offshore oil or it's going to be wind power, it's all part of the green energy that we're looking at. And I think we've said that the environment is so precious to all of us around this rock that we got to look at all aspects of how we're going to do that. I mean, whether it be offshore oil or wind power or anything that we do. And so first thing that we need to do is make sure that we have the trained people to be able to do any of those things and fulfill some of the jobs that's going to be needed. And the mayor and the minister can, say that we know that the people that we need in this province right now, we don't have them. We don't have enough people. We have to bring in outside workers to do it. So for us is to start training, and we have to start training a lot of our people to take some of those jobs and do it in a way that have good results coming back to the younger folks to be role models. We encourage people to join RCMP, to go into the armed forces. All those things are part of building a community of a different kind of warriors than we had to face going back into the 70s and 80s. We're going to have trained warriors that can take on the world. And that's what we're doing. And in a way that's respectful to all people and all things. So, training, and building an economy around that training for future development in our community. And any new plan in general.
And Minister, in your opening comments, you didn't necessarily mention the offshore, and I know the government's had a lot of focus on, building on looking at offshore wind, and you spoke a bit about that. I've been in conversation with folks in Atlantic Canada around SMRs, the use of that to make green hydrogen. There's all kinds of things being pursued that are really important. But I wondered if you could comment briefly on the LNG story, the LNG potential of the region, on the offshore oil and gas that already exists there. How does your government view that resource, even as you build out these other opportunities?
Look, thanks, Shannon. And I've got to agree with the chief and mayor. The oil and gas industry is the heart of Newfoundland and Labrador's economy. As the mayor alluded to and Chief Joe alluded to, when the fishery closed, as the saying goes, one door closes, another door opens, and the offshore opened for us. And the industry has given us a huge regional support. St. John's, of course, is one of the major supply centers for the offshore oil. The offshore oil supports more than 600 small and medium-sized enterprises. It's over 6,700 people that are directly employed, and that's directly employed with the offshore oil and gas. And the industry pays billions of dollars in royalties to our economy. And as the chief said, and the mayor said, we're not turning off of oil anytime soon. Newfoundland and Labrador has some of the best oil in the world. And we're proud of that. And as I said, we're not turning that anytime soon, but we do have to transition to a cleaner, greener economy. We're all seeing the impacts of climate change. Hurricane Fiona hit in my riding just over a little year and a half ago. And if people didn't believe in climate change, they certainly do there now. My apologies to my four-legged friend here in the background. But Chief Joe touched on something that's so true. It's the education and it's the people part that's going to make this happen. We talk about the environment, we talk about the economy, how they go hand in hand. And the third part of that is community. It's our Indigenous communities as a partnership there. Think of it as a stool. You need 3 equal legs on a stool, and it's the community involvement with the environment and the economy that's going to truly make us successful. And it's educating workers to transition into the new field. But there's also trades that if you're a pipe fitter out west, you can come home and be a pipe fitter now. But I'm also encouraged when you see some of the proponents that are interested in the oil and in the offshore wind sector, that they are now supporting education and training and working with our community colleges and our universities. But we've got so much on the horizon. Like I said, we've got the Everwind Fuels project in Nova Scotia and in the Burin Peninsula. We have Pattern Energy in the Port of Argentia. We've got World Energy GH2 here in the west coast of Newfoundland and Labrador. We've got Bearhead Energy and the Canso in Cape Breton. We've got ABO Wind in Macbeth with partnering with the chief, and Briar renewable fuels. And in New Brunswick, you've got Beldoon Green Energy Hub. There's so much potential. That's why you saw in August of 2022, the Prime Minister and the German Chancellor were in Stephenville, Newfoundland to sign an MOU of how do we work forward together to making sure that Canada, and especially Atlantic Canada, are world leaders in supplying world energy, green energy to the world. And you're right, we have other opportunities in the SMRs, the small modular reactor technologies, and they're gaining incredible interest in the next generation of capacity because of their potential. And as the chief mentioned, here in Atlantic Canada and in the chief's backyard too, we're having the critical minerals that we're needing for the mining to make sure we have the batteries for electric vehicles. Like I keep saying, friends, the wind is in our sails in Atlantic Canada, and it's up to make sure we set our sail the right way to take advantage of all this for our economy and for the youth that are coming up. Because it's interesting. I fly back and forth to Ottawa regularly, and I always chat to people on the plane. A lot of them are rotational workers. And a lot of them say to me, gee, I travel back and forth, and do you think you're going to see this come? Are there jobs associated with this? Well, yeah, you can see now with the Everwind project, the windmills going up. As Chief Joe said, you are seeing the mines starting. And they're saying, I would love to work at home. There was a wonderful rally for support of the World Energy GH2 project in Stephenville a few weeks ago. And one of the signs that I think touched home most was a little girl holding up a colorful piece of Bristol board. I want my dad to work at home so he can stay at home. So we have an incredible workforce of passionate Newfoundlanders and Labradorians that travel the world to work. And I think you'll see a lot of them wanting to travel back home and stay at home because the environment and the economy are important, but it's how you tie all that to community is how we are truly winners in our Indigenous communities and in all our communities. So there are incredible opportunities coming, and they're going to go hand in hand with the offshore oil. But I'm proud to say that Atlantic Canada are going to be global leaders in the hydrogen wind world. And partnering with our communities, we are going to make a difference.
That's such an important point, Minister. And I really like that you touched on that whole question around training and people and creating the opportunities for people to kind of stay in their community, which I think has always been an important part of the resource sector, but also attracting people to opportunities that are going to be their region. And I wonder if you could maybe speak some more, and I'd love to hear the Chief and Mayor kind of weigh on this a little bit more before we change gears. With these new opportunities, the deal signed between the Prime Minister and the German Chancellor, and the projects that you mentioned, what are some of the things being done on the training side to attract folks and to prepare people for these opportunities? Because certainly, like, shortage of skilled workers and the need to get more skilled workers has been an important challenge everywhere in the country. Minister, do you want to maybe speak to that, and happy to have others speak too?
As I alluded to, Shannon, like some of the proponents are putting money into the community colleges and the universities to make sure that the actual skill set that they need is here. And I know there's some Indigenous partners as well to making partnerships with our Indigenous communities to make sure that that workforce is ready and available to go to work. And people say, oh, well, it's, so many thousands of people to build and then there's only a few hundred after. Trust me, in rural parts of Atlantic Canada, and I know Mayor Breen will agree too, we'll take all the jobs we can get, but it's also a rotational work too, because the people that are going to be building the windmills on the Burin Peninsula, they will then have the expertise to go build the windmills in Cape Breton. They'll then have the expertise to go somewhere else. So we're training a new industry and a new workforce that will be based in Atlantic Canada. And the potential is huge. The potential is amazing. And it's by working together with the 4 Atlantic provinces that we will truly make a difference. And as Minister responsible for ACOA, I'm proud of the work that ACOA is doing in working with the proponents and working with communities and other small businesses to get them ready. ACOA has worked closely with Enercan, Natural Resources Canada, and they've developed the Clean Power Roadmap for Atlantic Canada. And that provides an outline of how the region can work together for the coming decades, just not for the next year or two, but it's a roadmap for the decades. And we think of the big, you think of the big part of the industry, but as Mayor Breen can tell you, it's the small businesses. And the rally of support that they had for the wind hydrogen project on the west coast of Newfoundland, it was small businesses. It was somebody that had a work boot business. There was a local restaurant. There was a realtor. It wasn't just the big contractors that, everybody's first initial thought of. It's no, this is going to have a huge impact on our region. It's going to have a huge impact on our education systems too, because with the workers that are coming here, they are also bringing their families. So you're going to see more people coming into our community colleges, more people coming into our universities, bringing another skill set to grow and grow and grow. So like I said, it's such an exciting time in Atlantic Canada. And like I said, ACOA is going to be working with all the businesses, big and small, to make sure that we're getting them ready to transition and be able there to support every way we can.
Thank you, Minister. Chief Joe, did you want to comment at all on that question around training and getting people in your community ready for opportunities?
Well, yeah, absolutely. It's not just our community. It's all of Newfoundland. And as the minister said, there's going to be people that are doing turnaround work will start to move back into Newfoundland, and it will create a domino effect with families moving back, housing, real estate, developing new businesses. That's all going to be part of this process. We probably haven't looked far enough ahead to fully realize what this means. I mean, we probably look at right today what we talk about wind, we talk about offshore, we talk about the fishing, all those things, the forestry, but we don't really talk enough about 20 years from now, or even longer, because that's what we're faced with. We're not going to see a windmill go up tomorrow, but it is in our future. And the first windmill that gets erected in Newfoundland, I want to be on site to take pictures, because it's a turning point for me in my life in terms of what we're doing for the environment. All too long, we've not paid enough attention to what's happening to our environment, and now it's time to really get involved in doing our fair share. It's nice to sit back and you can blame the world, blame the big government, blame everybody for what's happening to the environment. But guess what? It's not your problem, it's not my problem, it's our problem. We all are faced with playing a part in terms of what's happening in the environment today. And the more we can do to make that happen, I'm all for it. And incidentally, I know that St. John's has always been looked at as the hub of many things that's happening. But Stephenville will shortly become a new hub too as well, with its work that it's doing with wind energy. And the other thing I wanted to add to that is we don't have enough research vessels in Newfoundland. And we want to do more research around what's happening in offshore or with wind energy, even with fishing. We have to bring in fishing boats from other parts of the world. We are now looking at how we can fix that by having our own research vessels, not only the polar prince, but other fishing boats that can be turned into research vessels. And so that's what we're looking at. And those vessels, of course, can be placed anywhere in Newfoundland, not just St. John's. It's a great place here, but you don't have to only port in Newfoundland. But Stephenville is going to be a key player, I think, in a lot of those things in terms of research. And it's good to see that happening on the West Coast too as well.
All right. Mayor Breen, did you want to weigh in? Because I'm going to change gears for a moment.
Sure, just a quick comment. I think one of the things in business that we always do is we need to build on our strengths and what we do well, continue to do it well, and to make it even better. And we have the advantage here of having one of the finest institutions in the world in ocean sciences in the Marine Institute, Memorial University, College of North Atlantic. All our post-educational or our post-secondary education institutions are a big part of our economic development and how we're going to be able to grow and meet the needs. And when you look at companies coming from all over the world to test their products here in harsh weather conditions, I can tell you February in the North Atlantic you're not going to get much harsher to test anything. So those are the things that we do very well, and we need to do them better. And we need to make sure that we're investing more in research and development. And if you just look at some of the successes we've had in the startup and the tech sectors, and our ability to build those technologies over time, I see that that's really where we're going to make our biggest impact in this, is our creativity and our resilience, and we can put them to good work.
That I think is a really good point of building from what you have, and I'd like to change gears and really move from that export conversation to kind of the energy locally conversation, because that's going to be so important for those other industries to grow. It was very much in the news recently, the whole question around exemption of heating oil, which is an important heating energy source in the region. There's a lot of conversation all across the country around affordability, reliability of energy, even as we pursue our emission reductions goals. So to start off, I want to situate it with all of you who are all in that region, maybe to speak to what is the reality right now of energy affordability and reliability in Atlantic Canada and Newfoundland in particular. Maybe I'll turn it back to the mayor to start.
Yeah, I think in Newfoundland, Labrador, and Atlantic Canada, we have some of the highest energy costs per household and per business, which is a real challenge for our residents, especially during the period of inflation that we're going through, and seeing the costs of many things being impacted that way. I think municipalities can certainly take a lead role in that. The facilities that we build, as I said earlier, when we did our Resilient St. John's climate action plan, it wasn't just about our facilities, it was how we brought the community together in our community action plan to bring about the changes that we need to make and how we can provide that leadership. So I think it's a real challenge, but it's one that we have to take on. And we need to, there's a whole lot of different things happening here at once. And we need to really find our way to focus on that and make the lives of our residents better for it.
Absolutely. And Chief Joe, maybe I'd let you weigh in as well, because sometimes the Indigenous energy security picture is different for all kinds of reasons. So how do you see energy affordability security for your nation and others in the rural parts of Newfoundland?
Like every Newfoundlander, we suffer through the same things that everybody else do in terms of affordability. It not only starts with the household affordability, but running your businesses, your band offices, all those things come under the high cost of affordability. Food, for instance, is going up in price. The fuel that we burn every day is going up in price. We still have Holyrood on site that's costing all of us a arm and a leg. And if we could find that magic marker somewhere that allows us to not have to pay those high prices, government will flourish even more here. But because of that, it's because of the high price of energy, we are all suffering from that. But finding a way around that is going to be a tough one. We have a hydro plant right on our doorstep, built in the 60s. And matter of fact, when they built the transmission line, it went across our reserve without even asking for permission to do so. So we're stuck with the same high prices as everybody else. And I don't know how or what the magic marker is, but I'm sure through people that has lots more than me will find a way to get to that question and make it work. But again, like everything else, it's going to take all of us pulling on the same rope to do that.
And no, I think that's true. And I think there is no magic marker. I think that's why we're all working together. Minister, I'd like to give you the opportunity to weigh in here, because I think your government has been very sensitive to these kinds of issues. How are you looking at this? How are you looking at closing the affordability gap and the access to energy gap in particular in the region? And I guess maybe if you can speak to more broadly in rural Canada.
Look, Shannon, it has been trying times for people. You're not going to sugarcoat that. We had a global pandemic that brought the world to a standstill. We all thought things were shutting down for a couple of weeks, and my golly, it was over 2 years, right? And then we're just, opening our doors from that when you have that terrible war in Ukraine. Ukraine is the breadbasket of the world. We're still feeling the impacts of that, and as long as Putin's, illegal invasion in Ukraine is ongoing, that we're still going to be feeling the impact of that, especially in our food prices. Then you have the other unrest in the Middle East. It is trying times, and the cost of energy and the cost of living is rising around the world. And then it's hard for us to realize when you look globally, Atlantic Canada, we pay less, but when you look nationally, when you look globally, but again, we've seen such an increase over the years. So we do consume more energy than countries, and we have the highest levels of energy poverty. So there's so much we've got to work on, and we have done that. We've come up with so many things to help Canadians. We've increased the OAS. We came up with a rental relief. We came up with $10 a day daycare. Like I know in Newfoundland and Labrador, when you're able to enroll in that program, that's saving the average Newfoundland family $6,000 to $7,000 a year. The child care benefit is still putting money into those, especially that's income based, so it's going into the families that need it. And then in the fall, to address the energy affordability piece, we doubled the rural rebate portion, the top up that we call it, and we did a 3-year pause on home heating fuel, and we added more money to the home heat pump program in partnership with the province to make sure that people can transition to a cleaner, cheaper way of heating and cooling their homes. Because we talk about heating our homes, but you also, with climate change, we're seeing extraordinary heat in the summer that we've never seen before. So with most of the heat pumps now, you can have both a heating and a cooling feature. So we've got many measures out there to help with energy efficiency for businesses, for homes. And it was interesting, Mayor Breen, yesterday I met with the Newfoundland and Labrador, the Canadian Builders Association, and our chat was just about this, of how we all have to work together with building codes, with municipalities, with everyone to say, okay, how do we make sure that A, we're retrofitting our older homes, but also building homes for the future, that they are cheaper to heat and cool and make it more affordable for people. You can't build a home now like we built a home 100 years ago. So how do we make sure, and municipalities also have to realize the stress that some of the things are having on their municipal infrastructure and our provincial infrastructure. So how do we all work together? I'm a collaboration person. So it's having the conversations with our Indigenous communities, with our mayors, with the provinces, with our territories, and all of us to say, how do we work together to make this? Because the planet is on fire. And we've all got to do our best to get that under control by, at the same time, realizing that there are some affordability issues. You're seeing some great things with the universities too. Just to follow up on what the chief and Danny said, we're blessed to have incredible institutions in Atlantic Canada. And what they're doing now in hydroponics for growing 12 months of the year, what they're doing in waste reduction, the stuff that we're doing in our fishery to be so innovative, in our construction industry to be innovative, to cut down on costs and make it a better place. Because friends, there's no better place to live than Atlantic Canada.
I think that's really well put. In terms of one important solution, and you spoke to that, Minister, is getting people access to other solutions, getting more energy available where it's needed. People talk a lot about ensuring we have processes in provinces and in federally that support things moving forward. And I know that all the governments are collaborating on this. Do any of you want to speak to what can we do to kind of simplify getting systems built, getting systems deployed in Canada? Maybe, Mayor, do you want to weigh in on that?
Well, I think one of the big things is making sure that everybody's at the table when these decisions are made. We can't afford to work in silos anymore. It depends. It doesn't matter what issue we're talking about. We are just too interrelated these days, where one level of government is really reliant on the other levels of government and our jurisdictions. have to come together. And what people and what businesses want is they just want us to get together to solve the problems that we face. So I think it's really important. We just talked there a little bit about building codes and how those things work. And it's important that everybody is communicating really well. And we think we do at times, but we really don't do it that well. We something happens, and then you find out that that communication really never worked as well as we wanted to. The stakes are high now, and there's some really big issues that we need to be all in front of, and making sure that the decisions that we make are the right decisions, not only 20 months but 20 years down the road.
Absolutely. Chief Joe, did you want to comment at all on that?
Yeah, I agree with the mayor in terms of communication will always be our biggest enemy. And we have to nurture that one along like we nurture a child. And for instance, down on the Canadian Peninsula where we live, we have 12 or 13 small communities that we deal with. And just an example, recently we've been working with the provincial government on a forestry project that we're doing. It's taken 12 years to get there. So finally I said, I have to talk to all the mayors in the Connecticut to make them understand what we're trying to do. So we're not taking away rights. We're not taking away the ability to cut firewood or build cabins. What we want to do is protect the environment and protect the migration trail for caribou. And that's what our work is all about. But because I was able to do that and invite the minister along at the same time, we were able to put this project, at least I think it's close to being signed off after 12 years. So I'm dense in some ways because it took me 12 years to realize that. I should have realized that 12 years ago. But, and we all have to be at the same table. We all have to have our fair share in terms of trying to make sure that everybody's looked after. COVID has taught us many, many things. It's taught us how to look after ourselves, taught us how to look after our neighbors, and be good, respectful citizens all the way around. We had people during storms be totally cut off from the rest of the bay. We offered up our fishing vessels to bring droughts and food into those communities. And that's what it takes. Everybody's our neighbor. When you live in Newfoundland, everybody's your neighbor. And everybody's a friend if you want them to be. And that's what it's going to take for all of us to come together to make sure all of this works. And I definitely want to thank the minister for the job that she's doing with ACOA, because if it wasn't for ACOA, a lot of the projects that we've been doing, we could never afford them. So a big thank you for that, Minister.
All right. Minister, did you want to comment on anything that's going on in terms of building on any of those comments?
I couldn't agree more with my friends. We've got to break down the silos, and that's why, and thanks for the comment, Chief Joe. I'm proud of the work that ACOA does. They've got 30 odd offices around Atlantic Canada. They're out meeting with stakeholders every day. They're leading the work on the ground to making sure that we're doing the right investments. They're working with businesses, large and small. And they've got a great advocacy as well. Like, we forget that sometimes, that ACOA is part of the big federal government plan, and they do great advocacy work for me and with me to making sure that we've got good partnerships with our other federal departments, good partnerships with our provinces, good partnerships with our communities and our Indigenous groups and our not-for-profits. They do incredible work, and they're excited about this new transition. We've got our Sustainable Jobs Bill 50 in the federal government of transitioning. They're working with communities and individuals and companies of how do we transition? How do we make sure we're ready? And as my colleagues have said, just not for the next few years, but for the long term, to make sure that we have now made our mark. I get sick and tired, to be honest with you, when people say, oh, Atlantic Canada, they're the have-nots, they've always got their hands out. No, we don't. We just work hard. We work very hard. And now is our time to shine and show that, yep, we're going to be world leaders in this new clean energy world, and watch us, because we are going to work together, as my colleagues have said, and we will get this done, and we will be world leaders in the green hydrogen in onshore, offshore wind world, and with all that goes with it, with the critical minerals, and with our environment and our economy and our communities. That's the key part too. The three parts: environment, economy, and communities, big and small, Indigenous. All of our communities are going to be working together. We see this opportunity, and we're all going to seize it, and we're all going to hold hands. And what's that saying we have, Chief? We're all going to be in the same boat, pulling on the same oar, going in the right direction. That's how we're going to do this in Atlantic Canada.
That's right. If you're not going to work with us, get out of the way, because we're coming through.
That's right.
All right, well put, everyone. I want to give a one opportunity for an audience question. And Scott, I think you can see those questions. Do we have any questions from the audience you think be a good way for us to close off this conversation?
Absolutely. I have a question here. I'll get to in just a moment. First of all, I want to say thanks to everyone for doing this. It was a great conversation. We're all in the same boat now. It seems like we're all in the same direction thanks to your inspiration. Speaking of which, at some point I should send a memo or just a short note to Premier Andrew Furey to say, because in Newfoundland, of course, the affectionate term for the boss is called Skipper. So I would say, listen, Skipper, I've got an idea. I have an idea for a new slogan, tourism slogan for Newfoundland and Labrador, and I'm going to give credit to Denny Breen. And the new slogan should probably be, everything is happening here all at once. Because I think that's probably a good idea. I mean, I think the mayor put it perfectly. I want to say a couple things about Chief Joe. I know you're retired, sir, but if you could just like every now and then strategically drop those pearls of wisdom like you did earlier. For example, everybody's your neighbor. I can't put it any better than that if you want to achieve anything that resembles world peace. Good communication should be nursed along like a child, and it darn well should be. Because I think that's probably something that's sorely missing. Now to the questions, Shannon, I apologize. So I have a question from Oyemi. First things first, Oyemi, I apologize if I've completely massacred the pronunciation of your name. That needs to be said. Second thing is, talk about, we talked earlier in the conversation, but striving for availability, affordability, and accessibility. But in the context of all that, the question asks, how can we guarantee energy security for all? And I'm going to go to, the minister looks poised to speak.
Thank you for the question, my friend. And that is such a key one. And, when we look at the resources that we do have, when we look at here at home in Newfoundland and Labrador, we've got Muskrat Falls, an incredible source of energy. When you look at last fall, I was with Minister Wilkinson, and we had the Premier of New Brunswick, the Premier of Nova Scotia, saying, okay, we have to hold hands and work together. We have to, and I think you're going to see more and more of that, as Danny said earlier. We have to break down the silos and work together. Here in Newfoundland and Labrador, there are other opportunities with other hydroelectricity projects, and I would hope that we see that on the coming in the future. And we have to be green in everything we do. Like, I was delighted to see in Newfoundland and Labrador a few years ago that the province is now allowing power to go back in, if you're doing solar or wind, to go back into the grid. As you travel, you're seeing more and more of that in other areas. So we have to do whatever we can to make sure that we do look at the affordability piece. And we have to make sure, as Danny said, that we're building efficiently, that we're watching it, but we have to make sure that we do have the power to do what we're doing. And I'm confident that the powers to be with that are cognizant of it. I know my Atlantic counterparts, we have this discussion regularly of what do we have to do to make sure that we do have the power to keep us going, and growing is the key part. Make sure we have the power to keep growing.
Thank you, Minister. Energy security, Danny Breen.
Well, I think that one thing that we really need to focus on is that it's not always a big project. It's a small project that can make a big difference. And that's, one of the projects that we're looking at now and evaluating is our landfill and whether we can produce energy from the landfill. And we're doing some testing on that now. It's not a simple judgment about whether it's reasonable or not, because you have to look at the lifespan and the ability. But if you can produce even a small amount of energy from there, then that helps us go forward. So I think we need to look beyond the major big issues and look at what we can do in our own sphere to see how we can affect that better.
Speaking of your own sphere, I turn to Chief Joe, and Chief, I know you're in a place where it's more than any on this screen, more than any of us, you're in an I won't say completely isolated area, but it's certainly a little bit off the beaten path than the rest of us. And I say that from a geographic standpoint, certainly not from your ability to reach out to the rest of the world. That's truly amazing. But in the case of energy security, I'll get your thoughts on that as well.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind, of course, I think we all have to learn to think green, look green, be green. And when we do that, we start to teach our children that the energy that's going to be needed going into the future is their future. They're the ones that's going to be a part of this. And I think I love the way Mayor is looking at turning garbage into energy. That's the phenomenal way of doing it. We all have garbage, whether we like it or not. And if we can find a way to turn that into some small projects of energy, more for you. And I think we all need to be doing that. It's hard for me to be green, but I can think green because I'm brown.
Thanks, Chief. Amusing as always. You're in full stride, even though you're retired. And goodness knows, as I mentioned earlier, we hope you won't be a stranger. Okay, so we're running out of time, and I apologize, but I need to get this question out there. Someone asked it, and I totally agree. And that is the availability of labor, the energy worker. And at Pearson, we do a series called The Future of Energy. And we did a webinar some time back with Minister O'Regan and others in the Building Trades Union and Bruce Power, and we talked about what is the future of the energy worker. You touched on training earlier, which is a key component, but tie that into the availability of the workers, and it's going to be a challenge, I assume, or maybe not. And I'm going to go this time to Mayor Breen.
Well, I think that's really where the industry has to play a key part, along with the government agencies and the communities, because we need proper identification of the skill set that makes these types of employees, and where the biggest benefit is from the training. And we have the expertise here. We have the ability to train our people, and taking their raw skills of what they have and being able to fine tune them into what we need to build this industry is something that I think everybody has a role to play in, but the industry in particular needs to be very upfront and key to this whole concept.
Good point. Minister Hutchings.
Thanks, Scott. And, I'm going to reiterate what I said before. We have thousands of people that are rotational workers all over the world. And I think you're going to see a lot of them want to move back home. I agree with Danny. All the businesses, be it mining, be it offshore wind, be it the salt mine down on the West Coast, they have to be very specific of what they want. I'm delighted to see some of the companies offer training programs, and we need to make sure that they're getting into the school at an earlier age. I hear that all the time. Don't wait till they're in grade 11 and grade 12 to go to the job fair things. Get in earlier and start planting the seed of how you can have a good job. The other thing I think is that the younger generation, and all due respect to all of us on the screen here, But I think it's the younger generation now that has an I won't say better appreciation, but they are grasped now with the green. Our Indigenous friends have known this a long time. But I think the younger generation coming up now is saying, I do want to have a greener job. I do want to be a part of greening our world and saving our planet and making it a healthier, greener for my children and grandchildren and future generations. I think we've got to get into the education bit earlier of the great job opportunities that are out there. And I think by working together and communicating everyone, not only us on the screen, but the businesses and the education systems, Memorial University, all the universities, the community college, to say what is out there and making sure that the programs are there. There's been a lot of change and a lot of tweaking to programs. We need to make sure that all the programs are there to make sure that Atlantic Canadians can get the upskilling that they need to work in this new industry.
Well, thank you, Minister. So this is our last point to be made on this particular topic. Chief Joe, I can't think of a better person to end off in such a great way. Training in your community. There's something you know about. I've seen it firsthand, sir.
Yeah, we actually started training our people back in the early 70s because when we built our first house, we had to train people to do it. When we brought in our first piece of heavy equipment, we had to train people how to do it. So our whole community has been built on the basis of training, whether you had to bring someone in to teach how to do drywall, to be a mechanic or a plumber or electrician. So that philosophy of our community have come forward into 2024 and continues. So we need to be mindful at all times that the more people we train in higher education, better it's going to be for all of us, not just for our community, but good for all of us in Newfoundland and Canada, for that matter.
Thank you, Chief. Chief mentioned his books earlier in his biography, or someone mentioned his books. I can't remember who brought it up, but I will say, if you are interested in Chief Mizell Joe's books, you can, I guess, Google his name, Miscl Joe, both under Breakwater Books and Flanker Press. And I think he's also done some poetry with Munn. So you can Google those and find those. In the meantime, Shannon, any final comments?
No, I think this has been a fantastic discussion. I think it's been so important to shed light on the region. And Minister and Mayor and Chief Joe, all of you have such expertise and kind of local grounding. And so I want to thank all of you for being part of this conversation and sharing your wisdom. And thank you again to the Pearson Center for making it happen.
And thank you, Shannon. Please thank everybody at Energy for a Secure Future. Folks, thank you so much for joining us. If you're watching, I hope you enjoyed it. This will be up on our YouTube channel soon. And if you want to have it, if you missed half of it, you can get the full episode on YouTube. Nevertheless, to our guests, thank you again from the bottom of our hearts, both at the Pearson Center for Progressive Policy and Energy for a Secure Future. Have yourselves a wonderful rest of the day and a wonderful weekend coming up.
Thank
Well,
you. Take care, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.